As I read more about Susanoo, I can't help but compare him to Loki. Seriously, the two guys are both trickster figures, which albeit isn't out of the norm for mythology, but they also love messing with people. They also each take a joke a little too far. Loki when he provided an arrow to kill Balder, which would eventually start Ragnarok, and Susanoo when he threw a horse into his sister's weaving room, which caused him to be banished from heaven. I have a feeling he probably said something along the lines of, "It was just a prank, sis." To catch everyone up to speed in case you don't remember the last video, Susanoo is the son of Izanagi. He is also the god of winds and the brother of Amaterasu. Susanoo was wandering around the celestial sky palace when he thought he had a great idea. He saw a divine horse and flayed it. Then he grabbed the horse and threw it into Amaterasu's room. It smashed through the wall, and she was so frightened by this event she ran into a cave and refused to leave said cave. It took all the kami coming together and a strip dance for her to finally leave the cave. And when she did take the throne once more, she banished her brother from heaven. Now that's everything I mentioned in the Amaterasu video, shortened for time. But I didn't mention what the kami did to Susanoo before he left. And oh boy, this is bad. The kami took everything from Susanoo, and I mean everything. They stripped him of his clothing, his sword, his hat, and any other belongings he may have had. They shaved his beard and mustache too, and the worst part, they ripped out all his fingernails one by one. Ugh, just thinking about this. Ugh. After being humiliated and exiled from heaven, Susanoo went down to the underworld, Yomi, to live with his mom for a while. He was probably down there waiting for his fingernails to grow back. Some accounts say he went into the ocean and became ruler of the sea, but the more widely accepted is that he went to Yomi. Wherever he goes, he eventually does end up back on the main island of Japan. And on the main island, Susanoo becomes a traveler. He goes from town to town, never really settling down. In some of these towns, he gets up to his normal trickery, but in others he acts as a hero. Now this can mean two things. One, Susanoo became a sort of folk hero, who had differing stories about him depending on where you were from. Some of these towns saw him as a new light, while others maintained the more traditional outlook on Susanoo. The other possibility, though, means that Susanoo matured during his time away from the Celestial Palace. Hooray for character development! That's something so rare in mythology. Our first tale of Susanoo's adventures on the mainland starts with him walking somewhere, as most travelers do. As he's walking along, he comes across a woman, but this is no ordinary woman. No, it's a goddess. Specifically, Ukemoke, the goddess of food. She asked Susanoo if he was hungry, and he said yes. So she invited him back to her place for a meal. Oh, also, I should mention, if you're eating anything right now, pause the video and finish it, because you might not have an appetite after hearing this. When they arrived at her home, Susanoo sat down at the table and asked, "So, what's to eat?" Ukemoke then proceeded to pull food out of her nose, mouth, and rectum. Susanoo was, understandably, disgusted, repulsed, mortified, whatever adjective you want to use. He wished he could unsee that, and then proceeded to kill Ukemochi right there on the spot by cutting her in half. When he cut her in half with his sword, he saw even more food spill out from inside her. At this point, I can only assume Susanoo went into the backyard and barfed. I should let you know, this isn't the only version of that myth. There are other versions where it happens before Susanoo's banishment from heaven, and there's another version where it's the other brother, Tsukuyomi. The version with him actually explains why the sun and the moon are separate. Amaterasu was so upset with Tsukuyomi for killing Ukemochi that she swore to never speak to him again. That's why the sun and moon are constantly moving. Tsukuyomi is trying to talk to his sister, but she wants nothing to do with him. That's actually kind of sad. Moving on! Susanoo's more famous myth is less disgusting, so don't worry. On another one of his adventures, Susanoo heard people crying. He went to investigate and found a family, a mother, father, and daughter. He asked them what was wrong and they explained. The father said a dragon had taken each of his 7 daughters, and tomorrow it'll come and take the last one. Susanoo offered to help kill the monster, but only if he could have their last daughter's hand in marriage. The family agreed, and Susanoo said he would need barrels of sake, which is a Japanese alcoholic drink. The father then brought the barrels of sake out to the front porch. Damn, this guy must have been like a bartender or something to have a bunch of sake barrels on hand. Susanoo then turned the daughter into a comb and put her in his hair, and assured the parents that she'd be safe with him. Eventually the monster came, and when it did, the family and Susanoo hid. It is described as being a creature with 8 heads and sharp teeth called Koshi. Not the most threatening name, but we'll roll with it. Koshi went up to the house searching for the girl, but when he had a whiff of the sake, he couldn't resist. I know that feeling well. He ended up drinking all the barrels of sake until he passed out. Susanoo then walked over and cut off each head with his sword. As he was cutting the heads, a sword fell out of one's neck, although in other versions it fell out of the tail. Doesn't matter which end it came out of. I feel like we're glossing over the fact that a dragon had a sword inside it. Susanoo picked it up, and on the blade it was called Kusanagi, which means grass cutter. I feel like there's a Legend of Zelda joke I could make here, but I can't find it. True to their word, the family let Susanoo marry their daughter, and as far as I can tell, everything else works out fine for him. They settled down and started the Izumo province of Japan, which I think might have been a big power player in the early days of Japan, before finally succumbing to Jimmu's rule. When it comes to Japanese history, I mainly know about the late Sengoku period into World War II. There's one more thing I gotta mention about Susanoo. After he got his hands on the grass cutter, he gave it to Amaterasu as a peace offering / I'm sorry I threw a horse at you apology gift. She accepted it and welcomed him back into the Celestial Palace. Susanoo lived on Earth mainly with his wife and kids, but he did occasionally go visit the other kami in heaven. Aw, what a happy ending. Very much in stark contrast with Loki's though. Both started as tricksters who loved messing with people, but one matured and sought forgiveness while the other didn't care how much he pissed people off. Though in Loki's defense, if someone chained me to a rock and poured venom into my eyes, I wouldn't be too keen on forgiving them. Actually, you know what? Never mind the comparison. They're both trickster gods, but that's not exactly rare among cultures. One ends up with a wholesome family, and the other will inevitably fight his rival at Ragnarok. Talk about different life paths. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you want to see more, and have a good one.